being billed as one of the most important meetings in the European Union's history. In a few hours, Europe's leaders will gather for a second emergency summit on the Eurozone debt crisis. Italy, the third largest economy in the Eurozone, is under pressure to cut its deficit, and there's talk that the government there could fall. Well, such is the worldwide concern that China and other emerging economies have offered to contribute to a rescue fund. Well, to discuss the crisis, we're joined now by a European correspondent, Philip Williams in London. Phil, thanks for being there. And the idea here is to come up with an ambitious and comprehensive response to Europe's financial crisis. What are the chances of actually doing that?
Well, anyone's guess at this stage, and how remarkable that 4 hours before a major conference that's going to affect the world economy, that we still don't have a clear idea, and it still seems like there's lots of room for negotiation to how to get out of this crisis. At its core is the ability to convince the markets and convince the world that Europe has the firepower and the will to stop the contagion, to stop the Greek-style crisis moving to places like Italy, to places like Spain. But at this stage, even though there is a financial plan, a stability plan put together, 440 billion, the sticking points are over the detail, how to increase that firepower to 1, 2, even 3 trillion euro, to really tell the markets and signal to the world, we mean business, we have the capacity and we have the will, and we will stop the rot here now. At this stage, we simply don't have a clear steer of how that's going to happen.
Yeah, what are some of the details? I mean, basically there's a broad consensus, but as you say, they can't agree on a detailed agreement.
No, and it comes down to this basic problem. Of course, the structure is you've got a Eurozone, but you have 17 different economies, all with their own political needs, and they can't agree. For example, the French want the European Central Bank to be very much involved in bolstering the banks and providing funds to the embattled countries, to protect countries like Italy. They're very worried about Italy. The Germans don't want that. They want the bank to stay out of this, essentially, and that the funds be found from private sources, and perhaps they use this bailout fund as a guarantee, as a last resort, so that it's not all burnt up. By the way, that fund, 440 billion, is already half committed anyway. So if you had an Italy-style, if Italy went the way of Greece, they'd be able to prop it up for probably about a year, but after that, all the money would be gone.
Now, Phil, reports from China today that the government there is considering contributing to an emergency fund. Now, how significant is that?
Well, it could be significant, and it's not just China. There's also talk of perhaps the other emerging economies like Brazil being involved. We have heard noises, particularly from the Chinese, before about supporting Greece. We haven't seen much action there, but of course there's great self-interest involved with China too, because Europe is a great market for their products, and if Europe's in trouble, then obviously that market's going to dry up. And of course, any European contagion is going to spread not way beyond Europe. It's going to affect the whole world economy, and China has a great stake in that. So there may be some substance in that, but so far we've heard the words, we haven't seen the money.
And very briefly, we're nearly out of time, but the Italian position increasingly precarious, including that of the government.
Yes, Silvio Berlusconi told to put up a new austerity measures, convince the markets that they will cut back on public spending, to really justify support that's obviously coming, particularly from the Germans. That's threatened the relationship with minor parties there. There's been talk of a split with the Northern League and the government dissolving. That appears to have been headed off for the moment, but Silvio Berlusconi's position, Italy's position, still very precarious.
Phil Williams, thanks very much.
Thank you.